Good stuff. All right, welcome to part 2 of photo organization and preservation. Where do I start and why? Part 2, I've been trying to decide which one is my favorite part, but I'm so excited for all 3 parts. It's hard to say, but I still kind of want to say this one's my favorite part. Part 2 is solutions for preserving photos and memories. So we'll kind of recap where we left off last time, but I do want to start out again by saying note taking is encouraged. If there's something that jumps out to you, I think it's a great idea to write it down. So go ahead and feel free to do that. All right, so part 1, last time we talked about organizing and decluttering and their surprising benefits. We talked about why we actually have photo problems nowadays. That was not the case 50 years ago. We talked about how spending time with your photos is actually good for you. It should be considered self-care and not just something to do, check off your to-do list, like, going to the bank or whatever. We talked about decluttering your photos, how and why, and sort of the concept of decluttering. And along with that, prioritizing and choosing photos, how to do it and why. We talked about organizing both printed and digital photos with some options for digitizing printed photos too. And we ended with a few tips about renaming versus not renaming digital file names and how to be successful with photo organizing. So now that we've done that, now that your photos are organized, you're ready to preserve them along with your memories. And so today we're going to talk about these 2 things. We're going to talk about storage and we're going to talk about preservation of photos and why they're not the same thing. I think sometimes we use those words somewhat interchangeably, but they're really not the same thing. They're quite different. So we'll talk about those 2 things. So step 1 will be storing and step 2 will be preserving. So here is step 1, storing. So after organizing, let me let in one more person here. After organizing, you need to be sure that your photos are stored safely. So if you did what we talked about last time, you have like file folders or little like Tupperwares all around your kitchen table of printed photos, or you have, files on your computer of digital photos, but that's not where they belong, right? We can't just leave them there. So that's why we're talking now about storing them. Organizing, fantastic. But now it's time to store them safely. There are multiple ways to store photos. And so we're going to look at storage for printed photos, storage for digital photos, and a few things that are applicable to both. So how to store printed photos. It's very important to use containers that are archival safe, meaning acid-free and linen-free. Both acid and linen, which is a natural element in wood and therefore paper, both acid and linen eat away at photos. So anything that touches photos should be acid-free and linen-free. It's also very important to store printed photos in a climate-controlled area that's free from humidity and extremes in temperatures, because that can damage photos. So it's best to store printed photos on a bookshelf or in a closet in your living area that you're going to keep climate controlled, right? Instead of shoving them in an unfinished attic or a basement or a garage. Both of these, number 1 and number 2, are really important when you're storing printed photos. Now, when we turn to digital photos, there are a few things to know about how to store them. And we'll dive into this a little bit deeper. So first of all, there are several options for storing digital photos. One is your computer, one is an external hard drive or a flash drive, thumb drive, CD, stuff like that. If you store them that way, you just need to keep in mind that you will need to update them as technology changes, right? Floppy disks, I'm just going to say that. So they need to be updated. You'll need to stay on top of that, right? Another option for storing digital photos is cloud photo storage. But there are some things to be aware of and know about this as well. One, and I learned this from a professional photo organizer a few years ago, and I was completely surprised. I did not know this at all. If your photo is synced to most, they're all different, cloud storage like Google Photos or iCloud, you can't delete a photo off your phone without also deleting it from the cloud. And a lot of people just don't know that. There are ways around it, and I'm not an expert, so I'm not the person to ask, but just beware of that, right? If you are using cloud photo storage, know how that works. Just be aware. Also, not all cloud storage is created equally. And the more I have learned about this the last few years, the more I have been, again, kind of shocked and blown away. Some of it's downright scary. We'll look at some details of that. So here are a few examples of some popular online photo storage. We're going to look at the fine print for some of these, just again, so you can be aware. iCloud, down there at the bottom, I'll read a little bit of their fine print. You agree that your account is non-transferable and that any rights to your Apple ID or content within your account terminate upon your death. So you can save everything you want in iCloud, but just know that that's their terms and conditions. Google Photos fine print is, this license allows Google to host, reproduce, distribute, communicate, and use your content. Publish, publicly perform, or publicly display your content if you've made it visible to others. Now, I'm not 100% sure what that means, but I think that what if that means that if I put my photos in Google Photos and I share it with my sister-in-law, then Google's going to claim rights to them. So I don't know, but you read that for what it's worth. But the moral of the story here is to read the fine print. Apparently, a lot of them have a lot of fine print. None of the ones listed here actually guarantee the safety of your files. And most of them reserve rights to data mining and advertising using your files. I will tell you that I had a friend tell me about this. I don't know, maybe it's been 5 years or so now ago. And I didn't believe her because I thought, who does that? Right. But the more I learned about it, I thought, oh, well, like almost everyone does that. A few more fine print. And I literally just put this little quote on the left here this morning, because this is in current news. This is a headline from Business Insider from earlier this week. Meta, the owner of Facebook and Instagram, warns it could pull Instagram and Facebook in Europe if it loses a data sharing ruling. So if you're using Facebook or Instagram as that's where I store my photos online, they might change their mind, right? So let's read a little bit more fine print just to know kind of what's out there, okay? Amazon photo terms of use. We may change, suspend, or discontinue the services or any part of them at any time without notice, okay? Facebook says when you share, post, or upload content, you grant us a non-exclusive, transferable, sub-licensable, royalty-free, and worldwide license to host, use, distribute, modify, run, copy, publicly perform, or display, translate, and create derivative works of your content. Good to know. That made me think twice about what I put on Facebook, I'll tell you that. And then Shutterfly says we may terminate your access to our sites and apps and to your account. Did I read that right? To our sites and apps and to your account at any time, with or without cause and with or without prior notice. So this is why I just say beware where you are putting, what kind of weight you're putting into cloud photo storage and where you want your photos to be. I do have a recommendation that I learned about recently called Forever Photo Storage. And these are the reasons I like it. They guarantee the safety of your files for your lifetime plus 100 years. They do not do any data mining or advertising. You actually get an option to pass down your account to someone. You can add an administrator to your account. And forever, I think this is super cool. We'll update your file formats if they become outdated. So like right now we have JPEG files a lot, and like, will we have JPEG in 40 years from now? I have no idea. If we don't, forever will actually update your file formats, which is really fantastic. I think I don't know what I would do if I personally were tasked with that. You know, I have a bazillion digital pictures, and then what happens, you know? Anyway, there is an option for album collaboration and sharing. So if you store your photos in your forever account, and so does your daughter and your sister and, you know, whatever, you can actually share with each other, which is nice. You have the ability to upload and access files from anywhere. There's an app included in that. And I forgot to put on this list, so I put it at the bottom, that this app is different in terms of syncing as some of the other ones are. So using the app to connect your phone to your forever account is an auto upload, not a straight up sync. So this means that you can set your account to auto upload new photos from your phone or tablet or whatever. And then the new photos are saved to forever. But when you delete photos from your phone, they're still in your forever account, which to me is like, that's how everyone should do it. Duh, you know. Anyway, also with forever, your photos are stored in full resolution. They're downloadable at any time, and your photos are triple backed up, which I love. Anyway, so these are kind of things to look for, right? Things to be aware of when you're using cloud photo storage. I want to mention a couple of other things about forever, just because they fit here. So if you are thinking about digitizing, they also have something called a forever box. You can scan photos, this whole list of things that you see over there. And the little note at the bottom is just that the forever box services are almost always on sale. So you can find out what's on sale when you click deals at the website. So that's, I think, worth mentioning as well. Oh, a chat. How much does forever photo cost? There's a whole, in fact, do you know what? I am teaching a free class next week about that. Let me make myself a note and make sure that I give you the information about it. It depends on, so they do like a 10 gigabytes. You can buy 10 gigabytes, or you can buy, I don't even remember the rest, like 20 or 50, I don't know, whatever, all of the different things. But let me give you the link to that, either the class or just the info. I'll just give you both, and then they'll both be helpful. So for Tom and Trisha. Yeah, and the thing that I like about that too is that when you buy it, the photo storage with Forever, you own it. Right? It's not like some of these services where they're like, well, we might change our minds. We might discontinue the services, you know, whatever. It's, you're actually buying it. So you own it, which is nice. Good question. Thank you for that. Also with Forever, they've been around since 2013, which is, that feels good to me. I like knowing that things have been established, and you get a $20 coupon when you open a new account. The link to do that, I signed up with them, so the link to do that right there is down there at the bottom. But you can use that $20 coupon for, like, toward buying photo storage or a Forever box or whatever you like, print products. You want photo books and stuff, and the coupon's good for 60 days. So that's good to know. And then one last thing is, I don't know, my brain works this way. So coupons that you give when you open an account are stackable, so you can use multiple coupons at the same time. Once you open a Forever account, you get your own shareable link too. And so anyone who opens their account at your link gets a $20 coupon, and so do you, which I think is cool. So this is the way my brain works, right? If you know 4 people who need Forever services, and you give them your link, that's $80 toward your permanent photo storage or digitizing services or printed products or whatever you want. So anyway, there's just kind of word to the wise if you want to, you know, if that makes sense to your brain too. Okay, so I know phones are kind of a big, I don't know. We only have so much memory on phones, I guess. So this is a photo storage tip that I wanted to share. to avoid having multiple photos of the same thing everywhere, right? Like it's on your phone and it's on my computer and it's in the cloud and I got, all these things. You might consider deleting photos from your phone. Once you've kind of gotten them organized, you picked your favorite things and you've safely stored them elsewhere, you may consider doing that. I do that because then I don't have 90,000 things on my phone and I just save my favorite ones. Like, yeah, but we went to the beach last time and there was a pretty sunset. And, I save my favorite ones on my phone. Anyway, it saves memory space on your phone and you don't end up with so many photos that you can't find anything. Once you get them kind of organized onto a computer, onto cloud storage, your CD, whatever it is that you're going to use, they're safe, right? And you can delete them. I'm tripping over that word, sorry. You can delete them off your phone. Okay, so that's storing, all right? So now we're going to look at preserving photos, and we're going to look at why storing photos and preserving photos are not the same thing. So with preserving photos, it can be tempting to think that once your photos are stored safely somewhere, they're also preserved, but they aren't. They're not the same. And here's why. If you look this up in the dictionary, these two words, to store is to accumulate or put away for future use. And to preserve is to keep alive or in existence, to make lasting, to protect or keep safe. So in my mind, storing is like the organizing, we got it all, we know where everything is, we're putting it away in wherever it is, your external hard drive or your cloud storage or wherever you're putting it, right? That's storing. I think of that in terms of like a storage unit. If you have a storage unit, you're not going there every day. You're not participating with the things in your storage unit, right? If I have winter clothes that I want to store for the summer, my intent is not to use them or see them or think about them. They're just gone, right? They're stored, okay? To preserve something though, think about I love this description or this definition here: to keep alive or in existence, to make lasting, to protect or keep safe. Now you can kind of see how there's a little bit of overlap there, right? But I chose purposely the pictures that are on this image. So to store made me think of like, let's get them in the cloud, let's get them on, whatever, right? To store, put them away, make sure they're safe. But down at the bottom, to preserve, there's a little book in there. There's little stories and pictures and they're accessible and I can see them. I'm keeping those pictures alive. I'm keeping them in existence, right? So that to me is the difference between storing and preserving. So we talked about storing. So now we're going to talk about preserving. Experts say, and this may surprise you, experts say that it's best to store your photos in 3 ways: 2 digitally and 1 in print. I think sometimes we don't really think about print. There's so much frenzy about storing that we sometimes don't think that we are storing them when they're in print. Print actually never runs the risk of becoming a corrupted file or being stored on a system that will become unreadable, like the floppy disks. Printed photos stored well can last up to 200 years. There are photos still out there that were taken in the mid 1800s, right? But we actually don't know yet how long digital photos will last. They're pretty new. I think we're getting better at figuring, storing things and updating things and backing up things and stuff, but printed photos are actually a very safe way to quote unquote store your photos. And then I've got just a little asterisk there for the 2 digital ways to store your photos down at the bottom. Experts recommend that your 2 digital photo storage methods are 1 on site, meaning in my house, in your house, and 1 off site, a cloud service. So this makes a lot of sense to me. I used to think, well, I've got all my pictures on my computer, and then I've got a little right here, external hard drive. And I put them in both places. And so I feel like, oh, good for me. I've stored them in 2 different ways digitally, which is true, except my computer is right next to my external hard drive. And if my house burns down, right? So that suggestion to store one offsite using a cloud service makes a lot of sense to me. Or I could, put my external hard drive in my neighbor's house or whatever, right? But don't put them both in the same place is the idea. Okay, so why preserving photos? So think about this. Photos that are only organized and stored do not have their most important part, the memories and the stories that go with them. It's the memories and the stories that make photos meaningful. I've been using the hashtag "Don't let your babies grow up to be JPEGs" for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years now. And that's what I mean, right? The JPEGs, the files are awesome, but the print and the story and the memories is what makes it accessible and meaningful instead of just a file, right? Okay, so a little bit more about the why of preserving photos. So preserving photos in a tangible way, books, scrapbooks, photo albums, however you like to do it, makes them more accessible than digital versions alone. So I want to give you an example of that. A couple of years ago, my daughter graduated from high school and we had a bunch of family come to go to the graduation and celebrate and everything. And my niece came and she's a couple years older than my daughter. And she came and I was busy in the kitchen and everyone was kind of socializing and talking. There's that little family buzz that goes around, that little noise. I love that. Anyway, so my niece sat down on the couch in our family room and she saw my shelves full of scrapbooks, right? And so she just went and pulled one off the shelf and started thumbing through it. And it was the coolest thing to see because she looked through it, but then she would say to my kids and other people in the room, "Oh, look, this is when you were 4. This is so cute. What were you guys doing?" And in about 10 minutes, everybody sort of, gathered around her and we're talking about memories and photos and, "Oh, remember when we went to this?" And, "Oh, you're so cute when you were 3." And, all these things. And it was this I don't know, this exchange, not just of memories, but experiences and sort of connection is really the word that I'm looking for. So that was because the photos were in books. And 100%, I promise you, my niece never would have come to me and said, "Do you have like some digital photos somewhere on your phone that I could look at and sit down and look at everyone with?" Right? Like that just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It's when it's on the shelf. It's when it's on the coffee table. It's when it's available is when they get looked at and loved and appreciated and cherished. And that's really what it's about. Beyond the organizing, beyond the storing, this is really what it's about. So this is why I think preserving photos is so important. And I think this sort of summarizes everything. The sheer volume, research suggests that the sheer volume and lack of organization of digital photos, which we got over last class, by the way, we don't have that problem, but sheer volume and lack of organization of digital photos for personal memories discourages many people from accessing and reminiscing about them. In order to remember, we have to access and interact with the photos rather than just amass them. So I think that's excellent food for thought. And that helps me a little bit as I go and choose my favorite photos, like we talked about last time. My goal is not to amass photos, right? My goal is to remember and access and interact like my niece was doing. So here are just some things to, again, beware of, know about when you're preserving photos. Not all photo books or photo albums are created equally, and I suggest you prioritize quality. Don't settle, because nobody wants to spend our precious time or our precious money preserving photos and pages twice because the product fell apart. Use heirloom quality products that can be passed down to the next generation and the next. And I also say, choose a preservation method that you will love, because if you love it, you will do it. It won't be a chore. It'll be fun. It'll be something you look forward to doing. A few other things to just watch out for. Whether you're preserving printed or digital photos, be sure your pages and anything that touches the photo is acid-free and linen-free. For digital photo storybooks, the type of binding is important. Glue will yellow and crack over time, causing pages to fall out. So the best bindings out there are a stitched binding, like with stitches. That's considered a high quality library type binding, best out there. Or equally good, something called the pour method, which is also referred to as perfect binding. It acts like glue, but it's actually a chemical bonding process. It's almost like within the binding, it's like the pages are melted together a little bit. So it kind of looks like glue, like it acts like glue a little bit, but it is not glue. It doesn't yellow or crack over time. The pages are bonded together. So those are two top quality bindings to look for. All right, so here's some how-to. If you have printed photos, here are some options for you. The first one is just traditional photo albums, right? The kind that you buy at Target or whatever, Michael's or wherever. With that, you need two things, the albums and your photos. But again, just double check the quality, make sure that you know that albums are archival safe. I guess I'm surprised that in this day and age, like we should be so advanced that nobody makes albums that are not archival safe, right? That pictures don't belong in, but they do. And so make sure that you check. Another option for preserving printed photos would be traditional paper scrapbooking. For that, you would need paper, adhesive, page protectors, pens, a paper cutter, and your photos. And I'm going to say optionally, you need stickers and fancy scissors and other embellishments like buttons and brads and washi tape. And the reason that I mentioned this, I guess I just really want to emphasize it, is that if you are a paper scrapbooker, you can do whatever you want. There are no rules. People think you have to have the stickers and the fancy scissors. No, those are optional. I feel a little bit like when paper scrapbooking came on the scene, it made people feel like, well, I can't do anything with my pictures because I don't scrapbook. Hello, people in 1925 didn't scrapbook either, and they did stuff with their pictures. Like, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to do that. So I guess I just want to mention that. And then obviously there's an option to, if you have printed photos, to then digitize them, scan them, and then you can make digital photo storybooks. So that's kind of the how-to on printed photos. How-to on preserving digital photos. So there are a lot of options. You've probably seen, you could make a book at Walgreens, right? But here are things to consider about the several options that have popped up over the years. Ask these questions. What's their photo storage policy? If you put your pictures at Walgreens, like, then what, right? Are they private? Are they permanent? Do they do data mining and other rights to your photos, like deleting or selling? Like, just know, right? Learn, figure out the fine print. What's the quality? Are they archival materials? What's the binding? Do they have a satisfaction guarantee or not? Like, what does that look like? How long do your projects stay in your account? Like, if you make a book, and I've never used Walgreens, I'm not dissing Walgreens, that just came out of my head. But like if I make 20 years of stuff and I put it in there, then what, right? Do I still have access to those? Or how long do your projects stay in your account? And are there any requirements or limitations to that? So these are things to know and think about. Think also about, what do you like? Do you want to get like all crafty and scrapbooky? Do you want to have a ton of options for how to put your pictures in a book, or is that overwhelming? Do you want some templates? Or do you like the digital scrapbooking platforms where you just like, I'm going to put a picture here and a little flower, and like, do you like that? Do you have the time and inclination for creative digital scrapbooking? Do you have the time and inclination for simple photo storybook creation? What high quality options fit your budget? And do you want a way to share photos and photo books digitally with other family members? Like if you create a little book and then you can show it to them digitally, like how does that work for you? What do you want? What works for you? All right, so I do have two recommendations that I have been using. I've been using Heritage Makers K. Next month it'll be 17 years. And Forever I started using last year. They're both heirloom quality, very important to me, as you've probably figured out, and private photo storage, also very important to me. So I'll start on the left. So Heritage Makers offers a free account, heirloom quality products, private photo storage. They have one platform for creating books and digital scrap pages, which is fully editable. You can move anything around, whether it's a template or you're creating from scratch. There are tons of creative options. It is going through a reboot right now, which will later be two platforms. The templates will be available in one and create from scratch will be available in the other. Forever also offers a free account, heirloom quality products, private permanent photo storage, because that's you're buying it there, the photo storage. They have 3 platforms for creating books and digital scrap pages, which is cool just because I think it gives you more options to find something that you like. There's a push of a button one called auto print for basic. It's a very basic look, like a black background, or you can choose a purple background, or you can choose, a tan background, right? And then you just add captions. Not a lot of text available in that one, but it's very quick. Then there's one called Design and Print, which is editable designer templates. So this is a little prettier. And you can put your pictures where the pictures go and your text where the text goes, and just kind of personalize it that way. It's a little more, the page is the page, but you get to pick the page and kind of rearrange. Well, I'd like one with more text or whatever. And then they also have an option called Artisan, which is fully editable creativity in digital scrapbooking software. It's like mega creative and woo. So there's a lot of options between these two. There's just a lot of options for whatever you want. And like I said before, pick something you will love, and then it's easy to do. All right, so photo and story treasures is kind of what I call that, between Heritage Makers and Forever, and I love them. So there are websites there if you want to love them too. Heritage Makers has been around since 2004, Forever since 2013. Heritage Makers has a little asterisk because it's sort of a work in progress at the moment. It's sort of a long story, but here is the very short version. In 2022-ish, it's kind of happening now, Heritage Makers will be updated and will be called Y Photo. Until then, Heritage Makers requires a special workaround because Heritage Makers has always run on Adobe Flash, which Adobe discontinued. So there's this kind of, like I said, a little bit of a work in progress, but high quality in both and photo privacy in both. So those are my recommendations and things that I have been using myself. Okay, so we went over storing photos, preserving photos, the difference between the two, and some recommendations for both storage and preservation today. Next time, or last time, believe it or not, will be strategies for consistency. So we've talked last class and this class about some fantastic, wonderful, important things, but then how do we do it? How do we make this doable? How do we stay consistent with all these things that we would like to accomplish? So in part 3, we'll talk about strategies. I've got a total of 10 possibilities and ideas, and some of them are like really different from each other. So I like that. I like being able to suggest a bunch of, a variety of things in order to help people find what they want and find what will work for them. So we'll talk strategies next time. Here's how you can keep in touch, ask me questions. Here's my email. I got a monthly newsletter, blah, blah, blah. So join me on social media or whatever works for you, and we can open for questions now. I'll leave this up for a minute if you want to write anything down. So storage, preservation, Any questions or thoughts or anything you want to talk about? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn the recording off and then see if there's any other comments or thoughts.